Okay, good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay. 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 My name is Stephanie Rose.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, great. My name is Stephanie Rose. I'm one of the education officers here at the Institute of Jamaica, particularly from the Division of National Museum Jamaica. And for those who don't know, we are actually doing our CSEC lecture series this morning. It's one of our annual programs here at National Museum Jamaica, where this program helps students who are doing their CSEC history, CSEC examinations. It was established to help those students to be better prepared for their
presenting
examinations.
privileges.
And what we do is cover chief components of the history syllabus. So we look at a theme and we allow prolific educators from our high schools to come to the IOJ to cover those areas and allow students to have more knowledge and helps them to have better essays when they're doing their exams. So this morning it's a little bit different. We're actually covering or doing a review of paper one, the multiple choice section of your history examination this morning. And we have two presenters, Mr. White and Mrs. Baxter. Mr. White is a teacher. Actually, Mr. Vernon White is a teacher.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
History
Don't go far.
educator extraordinaire, as he likes to call himself. And of course, Mrs. Baxter, who we have worked with for many, many years. She was one of the presenters last year, and she's back with us again. So we're happy to have you both on board. And of course, this morning, I would like to welcome all our participants here on our CSEC lecture. And I would like to hand it over now to Mr. White, who is the chief presenter this morning. So I'd like to welcome everybody. Learn as much as you can. Learn, listen, and participate. Over to you, Mr. White.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rose. Hey, good morning, everyone. You're welcome, welcome. And I'm sure that you are here. You want to prepare yourselves adequately for the. Hey, good morning, everyone. You're welcome, welcome. And I'm sure that you are here. You want to prepare yourselves adequately for the. All right, I think there's a technical issue. I'm getting a delayed feedback.
Yes, there seems to be a delayed feedback, Mr. White. I'm not sure why.
I think there's a technical issue. I'm getting a delayed feedback. Oh boy. All right. Can it be fixed from your end, Miss Rose? I don't know.
Okay, I'm gonna try and get it fixed. Hold on.
Please do. Can it be fixed from your end, Miss Rose? I don't know.
Okay, I'm gonna try and get it fixed.
Mr. White, I'm hearing you quite clearly at this time. Even the last sentence that you made, I heard you.
No, what happens is that when I say it, I hear it back about 2 minutes afterwards.
You made.
So
I heard you.
No, what I'm just here. When I say it. Right. So what I just said, it is being repeated to me now. About 2 minutes afterwards. It's almost like an echo.
Hi, Mr. White. Morning, everyone. My name is Alexis. I'm one of the outreach officers. Mr.
Right.
White.
So what I just said is being repeated to me now.
Yeah, man, I understand, Mr. White. But that's on your, unfortunately, is your computer, not us. I'm one of the outreach officers. Mr. White.
So it's on my computer.
I don't know if it's ours, but go ahead. I'm going to mute our mic now. Yeah, it could be a lot of also. We have all our mics unmuted. So I'm going to mute ours now.
Okay. Let's send it. All right. All right. All right, guys. So as with everything technological, we have technicalities. Right. It's good to have you here, both teachers, members of the Institute, as well as students. For those of you who are going into the examination, I'm sure that you want to adequately prepare yourselves. You want to do your best, and you want to be able to just go into that exam and do well. Mash it up, as I say in the Jamaican style. Right. So without much further ado, because we want to do everything that, you know, we have planned, to cover everything that we have planned so that the advantage goes to you, we are going to go straight into what is it that we have to do. So we'll be looking at, we're working the area resistance and revolt, just really giving you an overview because of course your reading would need to be deeper. Remember, this is multiple choice and you have no idea of what it is that you'll be faced with. So of course your reading would have to be complete, so to speak. We usually see this part of the syllabus as important. We just see this part of the syllabus as extremely important because in a sense, it really explains us and who we are as Caribbean, as a Caribbean people. It really enlightens major portions of our history. And in my preparation, I was thinking that when I, for example, I look at the different ways in which women resisted slavery, almost so things haven't changed, all right? But I will be delving into those different areas and maximizing the use of the time. And then we will be looking at several questions drawn from past CSEC multiple choice papers. All right, so just give me a minute or so. Let me get my sharing up and then we'll get going. Right, so here we are now. So we are looking at the CSEC Caribbean history theme, resistance and revolt. And this is one, of course, of the themes that you will cover in preparation for your exams. Certainly you'd have to delve into the others in detail. And remember, this is multiple choice. And for multiple choice, you have to read more widely than you do, well, maybe as widely as you do, and even more so than for the paper two. All right, so without much further ado, let us delve into what we have here. So we are just, going to do a little rundown, and I'm going to paraphrase, and certainly we'll be sending, for all participants, we'll be sending the PowerPoint to you. And again, I would really encourage you. History is about reading. The information is there. It's there at YouTube videos, books, internet sources. Most certainly, you can avail yourselves of these sources to fully prepare yourselves for the exam. All right, so let us begin. All right, so resistance. What is resistance really? And I'm going to do a lot of paraphrasing. So resistance really it's about define the established order. And certainly you know that the established order was not to the advantage of the slaves. Right. So it was not to the advantage of the slaves. And of course, the slaves really wanted one thing more than anything else, their freedom. Now, the point has to be made that resistance didn't really started in the New World or wherever they ended up. Resistance started from the moment they realized that they were leaving their homeland. And so there are so many instances. So there are so many instances of slaves, seizing their chances, to revolting on ships, fighting along the way, some even jumping overboard, preferring death to the kind of life that they imagined, the kind of terror that they imagined was waiting for them. So resistance really was an act of defying the established order. And the established order was really slavery, enslavement, the taking away of your freedom and your rights to yourselves, your what you do with your time, what you do with your lives, what you do with your family, what is done with your body, what is done with your economic means. And then as historian Franklin Knight pointed out, slaves naturally resisted their enslavement because really it was natural. Despite there have been historians who have argued that, well, slavery existed in Africa before this widespread use of slaves in the New World. Slavery existed even in Europe way back then. But historians have also looked at it and realized that this version that existed in the New World was brutal in many different ways. It was fundamentally different and fundamentally unnatural, right? So when you're talking about resistance, you're talking about the act of defying what was there, the established order, the order that says that, specifically African persons or persons of African derived from Africa, extracted from Africa, taken from Africa, stolen from Africa, that they were to be enslaved. All right. So resistance really is the act of defying all of those. And it was not just physical, it was also mental. Because as you'd have realized, many times people get into a situation and they adjust themselves to it and they mentally accept it. But so many of the slaves decided that was not their lot. Their lot was not to be somebody's slave forever. All right. Now, if we are looking at the forms of resistance, of course you'd have been exposed to the types of forms of resistance. So insurrectionary, which is violent resistance, and non-insurrectionary. Right. So you'd have been exposed to those two different types. And as we go along, you'll understand some more. Right? Why resist? In other words, why not just get yourself acclimatized to what was here? Right. So there are several reasons. One, you're brought far from Africa. You're dying, you're crying, you're in a strange land, you're taken from everything that that belongs to you. You're frustrated, you're given increased workloads and little bit of food, meager rations. And there's this common saying that we have in Jamaica that or even in the Caribbean, that hungry man can't function, can't work. And certainly based on your exposure to Caribbean history, you'd have realized that the workloads were massive and long hours. So that's another reason to resist. Another was that many times these persons were extracted in such a way they didn't get to say goodbye. The family had no idea what happened. They just, it's almost like it opens up a gap and you're just grabbed and taken to somewhere else. If you have a loved one who was not in the location, then certainly you would not be able to say goodbye, right? So that's another reason to resist. A husband might have gone hunting, somebody who is about to be married, leaving the love of his life, and he's grabbed and taken to a stranger, and he didn't get to say goodbye. A child may have wandered off, grabbed and taken away, didn't get to say goodbye. So these are some of them. You can imagine all the feelings that are associated with that. Another reason to resist, you are punished daily on the plantation. And trust me, as you will find, the forms of punishment were always were brutal by any stretch of the imagination, you know, and in whichever society you place them. Those forms of punishment were brutal. Mutilation, I mean, you know, just to send what you call it, to show others that, you know, well, you know, if you try to resist or to rebel, you know, this is what will happen to you. That's an example. All right. Why resist? You have no rights. You're treated as chattel, property, which means that you can be bought and sold. A son can be taken and sold to that plantation over there. A mother taken and sent to yonder to be sold, right? So that was another reason to resist. Your master has rights over your body. And there have been so many instances, and even some of these masters, planters, have written of these experiences, particularly when it comes to rights over the female body. You know, all of this impacted the psychology of the slaves, and it's either you resisted or you just accepted, and the majority of the slaves majority of the African enslaved chose to resist. Your family is separated another plantation, as I said before. Families could be bought and sold and sent all over the place, or even to other countries, right? You are forced to forget all your roots and the practices of your mother country. They were discouraged. They were viewed as, you know, not religious, against, you know, the Christian religion. They were viewed as animist, negative practices. So that was another reason, because, you know, you think of all the experiences that you grew up with, all of what you hold dear to you, all of the ideas about your country, about yourself, how to heal yourself, how to function, and then you're not only being encouraged to forget this, you are being forced. Sorry, was I unmute all this time?
No, we can hear you, Mr. White. We can hear you.
Oh, because I saw something coming up that
Yeah,
came
Mr.
up.
White. Yeah, man, we can hear you now, sir.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Right. Okay. Right. So, you know, you're forced to forget everything. And most important of all, you're not free. You're not free to be who you want to be. You're not free to make your own determination. You're not free to go and make some money for yourselves. You're not free to lie down in your bed on a day. You know, you're not free. You're in every single sense of the word. These persons were enslaved, right? So, and the enslavement was not only physical, they made efforts to enforce it in a psychological way. And in other words, they were trying to hone the slaves' mind and body. And of course, the slaves, you know, as human beings, resisted. And I think one other thing is that we not only think of them as slaves, we think of them as enslaved Africans. Just to point out that these were people who previously lived somewhere rather, but they have been taken, they have been placed into a situation, a brutal situation, within which their freedom in every sense of the word, physical, psychological, legal, medical, you know, rights over their body, those have been withheld, so to speak. All right, so there are many reasons for the slaves to resist, and they chose and resist. They did. We have to give kudos to ancestors that they didn't just sit down and take this. All right, and looking at, of course, you'd be familiar with some of the different ways in which the slave resisted. Certainly there's a violent resistance here where you see the slaves, well, you know, and that's of course gruesome to imagine. Certainly some slaves committed suicide. Some slaves resisted culturally, you know, you see the singing and the dancing and all of that. Right. So the slaves found, in other words, within their own physical and mental space, they found ways to resist. All right. So let us look at continue to look at the different ways slaves resisted. So there's marronage. So for example, in Jamaica, enslaved persons run away, go into the deep hills where they go undetected. Recently, I was passing Scottsall on the way to St. Mary, and I looked at the deep hillside, and I could see why they would choose that location. You know, it really was one way in, deep hillside, houses on the hillside, and so forth. So the slaves choose, the enslaved Africans who run away choose this kind of location. Why? To hide themselves. And why would they choose this? Because it meant that they were free. They really, more than anything else, wanted to be free. They didn't want slavery to be easier. They didn't want slavery to be nicer. They wanted to be free. They were captured as free persons. Even those who were born within the Caribbean and other parts of the New World, so to speak, understood, I would have heard of that time when their forebears were free men walking up and down, and women and children in Africa before they were taken. And of course, we know about the leaders of the Maroons, Kodjo and Nani, and others after whom the towns are named, Akompang, and there's Nani Town, and we know that all of this is tied to the cockpit country. Right, we are also aware that the Maroons fought two Maroon wars with the Europeans, 1732 and 1795, and certainly going into the multiple choice, dates are important. And the significant treaty that was concluded in 1739, where the Europeans recognized the Maroon community, gave them lands, 600 hectares with a promise not to attack whites, not to raid plantations for food. And this is the controversial part that really is affecting us even now. I think some of you would have seen the discussion we did the Maroons recently and the government of Jamaica, and that argument about sovereignty, right? You know, so even now this is topical. They agreed to return any slave runaways who fled to the Maroon Hills, and some people still blame the Maroon for that. I don't know. Did they have any choice? Right. So marronage was one of the many different ways in which certainly the enslaved people in Jamaica resisted slavery. Similarly, in Suriname, you'd have read about the Bush Negroes, where the Dutch made a truce with them, in other words, an agreement saying that, you know, well, we're not going to fight anymore. We granted them some right to occupy the interior. In other words, you can stay over there as long as you don't attack us, you don't encourage any slave revolts, you don't raid plantations. Right, so when you look at it, one could argue that marronage was really one of the most successful forms of slave resistance, so to speak, because it did result in those who managed to escape to this kind of environment gaining their freedom, right? Certainly those who initially came before the treaty, not those who came after, all right? So marronage was one of the ways in which says the enslaved Africans resisted slavery. All right. Now, there was also cultural resistance. And you know, in Jamaica and in the Caribbean, culture is very important because it's one of the ways in which we identify ourselves. It is also one of the ways in which we resist the inflow of many different cultural influences. You know, so what is topical now, for example, we have this argument about the festival song contest. Yeah, because it's cultural. It's part of who we are. It's part of how we define ourselves, right? So cultural resistance was important because it really was the Africans saying that This is me. I am not you. I have defined myself. I'm a human being. I have my own name. I can make my own things. I have my own language. My beliefs are different. I know maybe a lot more than you in terms of the sciences, even if not in a formal way, right? Sorry, just there are some persons waiting to join the room. Right. Right. I have my own music. I have my own dance. So all of this provided psychological support to help the enslaved African resist the process of enslavement. In other words, if you can find something to hold on to that said, this was part of who I am, and I had this before these people grabbed me and brought me to this environment, then of course it meant that you defined yourself in a different way. You saw yourself as you were before you were taken and placed into this situation. So all of this cultural resistance, all of it was important. And of course, there are more obvious examples. So for example, the use of the voodoo religious beliefs in the Haitian Revolution, and the use of hobia to strengthen the Jamaican Maroons and other slaves who revolted in the struggles against the British. So cultural resistance was an extremely important part of the slaves resisting, all right, of resistance to slavery. And of course, there were rebel leaders such as Nani in Jamaica and Bookman. Incidentally, as you'd have been aware, the Haitian Revolution, one of the main inspirers, to coin a term, of the Haitian Revolution was Bookman, who was a Jamaican, was really Jamaican by nationality, so to speak. Right, so rebel leaders such as Nani in Jamaica and Bookman and Macandal in Saint-Domingue, which is Haiti, were also religious or spiritual leaders. And it provided them with a belief system, a coping mechanism, and a means of resistance. So culture in any setting helped to define people. And within the context of slavery, it gave the enslaved Africans something to hold on to. All right. How did females? Now, guys, this is something that I really want you to pay attention to. And I'm sure you see several questions on it, because typically history is written from the perspective that, you know, males do that. Males are the general. Males do. But what you will find, or what historians have found in their exploration of the history of the African enslaved, is that the females were really integral into that resistance in many different ways, right? Many times taking place in the actual fighting, but other times resisting on a daily basis in ways that I think now would be familiar to us, right? So there was what we call the petticoat resistance, non-insurrectionary tactics such as backchatting your masters, and I'm sure guys, you know, even nowadays we still have it, quarreling, going to court, feigning illness, you know, boy, you know, I really can't write to the boy, my head is hurting, boy, you know, my tummy, you know, admitting themselves to their state hospital to avoid work, malingering, which is just, I'm not going to take a lot of time today, I'm just going to take my own time, you know, not pressuring myself. Certainly that's not what the master have in mind when he bought you as a slave. Prolonged lactation, in other words, the women would have children and they would take a very long time to breastfeed. You know, it's as if the baby can't be weaned of the breast. And if it come down to it, infanticide, which is really they would kill their children. You know, they really didn't want, many of them, they really didn't want their children to live in this kind of situation, to be alive. They view it as an act of love to really cut short their life rather than allow them to live in this situation. All right. So we are continuing looking at different ways females resisted or participated in resistance. Culturally, so they deliberately, even where it was forbidden, passed on traditions, religious practices, obia, different traditions, you know, and a lot of which would have come down to us today. Knowledge about herbs and plants that could be used in healing ways and otherwise. So the females were an integral part, or they participated in resistance through this way. They also and sung satirical songs about the master. So you can imagine the master passing and the female watching something and singing a song that is thinking that, well, this song, this person is saying something, being cheeky, saying something about me, right? And this was one of the ways in which they resisted in such a way that it couldn't be pinned on them. Many times they would strike and lay down their tools, you know, go and lodge complaint in courts, you know. They knew that you know, maybe it is that was futile, but they did it anyway. Where their few rights were on paper, they made themselves aware of it, because what is on paper and what is in practice is two different things. And they complained nevertheless without end. There are also examples of gynecological resistance, my apologies. So abortions, herbal birth control, they knew the herbs, they knew how to use them for good and bad. They'd use them for birth control so as not to, you know, have all of those children which the master would want to expand the size of the workforce on the plantation. They would have abortions using their knowledge of plants and all of that, right? So those are examples of the different ways in which females resisted slavery, right? So women made important contributions to both non-cooperation and organized slave resistance. In other words, they find ways, you know, songs, you know, ghost malingering, find ways to make the planters' lives miserable, but in such a way that, you know, to save themselves punishment, or to try to, you know, save themselves punishment. But they also participated in actual revolts, right? So looking at what we have here, so they regularly raise their voice, you know, allow their presence to be felt. So you can imagine like a slave woman in the field, you know, just standing up and, you know, the overseers there also, and they decide they are the boss. You know, they use these tactics to chip away at slavery, right? Think about the domestics. The domestics were dangerous people, because these were the persons in the houses who the food, the water, they were there where the master slept. These were persons who, some of them had knowledge of plants that could be poisonous or that could affect the body in negative ways, that the Europeans would know about. So these female slaves engage in acts of non-cooperation, malingering, taking their own time. You know, Saba bring some food, and then you're there waiting, and for the next half an hour you're waiting, and no Saba, you know, so the food are cooked, right? Acts of malingering, sabotage, and then more serious acts such as running away, poisoning the water wells, for example. You know, you imagine you're a plant and you're going to get some water for drinking. And when you dip that bucket in the well, you're wondering, well, is everything all right with this water? Should I drink it? You know, I wonder if, right? Revolting, right? So all of these are some of the different ways in which women resisted. And they were determined, you know, and this is one of the things that we notice about Caribbean women even to this day. So for the enslaved African woman, the harsh conditions didn't really squash their resolve, as they say in Jamaica, rub them out. And on the contrary, the harsh conditions really stimulated their determination to get out of this kind of brutal enslavement, so to speak. And I tell you something, these women were quite, what we call it, calculated. Because many times, you know, the European version of how a woman should behave, you know, you should be quiet, you know, better not seen, you know, speak softly and so forth. They use this kind of stereotype to really get themselves into areas where they would be least suspected of committing acts that were viewed as subversive, right? And as a matter of fact, the slave owners ultimately realized that, and they didn't just think of them as you know, well, they are the weaker sex. So, you know, we pay attention to the men, but these women won't hurt us. No, they were quite fearful of the enslaved African women, suspicious of them, distrustful of their potential activities. And when it was time for punishment, they didn't say, no, she's a woman, so give the man 50 lashes and give her 10. You know, they gave them punishment, equal punishment. Part of the reason, of course, was that they viewed them as property, really. They didn't view them as necessarily males and, you know, men and women. All right. So women contributed significantly to resistance and slavery. All right. And I think what should be noted is that, you know, it was not something that really started in the New World. In other words, when they really ended up in the situation of slavery. Some of these were traditional acts that would stem from the previous experience in their traditional society. So it would have been part of their social behavior pattern. All right. And again, I must emphasize that resistance to slavery didn't start on the plantation. So it's not like when they were grabbed on the African coast and put in the ship is that they say, all right, you know, all right, my question, where I go. You know, when we reach our, you know, we get there and they say, no, it's not going to work. No, immediately that they were grabbed, immediately that they were taken on the African coast, within their communities, the enslaved African, the process of resistance begun. All right. And that's something that you need to know. It should be part of, should really inform your reading. All right. Women also transmitted African culture from one generation to the next, and were particularly insubordinate. So for example, in 1823, when a law was introduced outlawing the whipping of enslaved women, it was opposed by the slave owners, and this is Trinidad, not Jamaica, that without the whipping, we can't control the women. What you doing? Why could you bring in such a law? How can we control these slave women without the whipping? You know, and that tells you about how resistant women were to this institution of slavery and this condition of enslavement, which of course was not, it was unnatural, right? And as a matter of fact, they had no problem with using their positions to commit acts of poisoning and infanticide. Right. So I'm using the point to say that unlike a lot of the general perception of history of resistance, slave resistance in the Caribbean,
Am I the only person not hearing Mr. White? Alexis, are you hearing Mr. White, Alexis?
He's mute.
I'm not hearing.
And then his presentation has come off.
I'm not hearing Mr. White.
But his presentation is also gone. So I don't know if we lost him. Yeah, he looked like he's gotten kicked off. Maybe he's.
All right, they're trying to correct that problem. I just made contact. So please give him a minute or so.
Yeah, man,
Thank you.
problem. Sorry, guys, just please wait. The joys of technology, everyone.
Okay.
Guys, my apologies. I'm back. I really would love to continue. Could I have screen sharing privileges?
Sure, Mr. White. Let me make you back a co-host, sir.
Yes, please.
I'm glad that you
I forgot the time limit for Zoom. Yeah. Am I back?
Yes, sir, you're back.
I'm on screen. I'm on screen. This side is on screen.
Yes, it is, sir.
Okay. All right. So guys, my apologies about that. Right. So females, you know, they were leaders of several rebellions. So one was known as Cuba, the Queen of Kingston. You know, was prominent during Take's rebellion in 1760. Nanny Grigg was one of the leaders of the 1816 rebellion in Barbados. So women played an integral part in resistance and revolt in the Caribbean as well. Not only the Caribbean, in many different areas of the New World. All right, types of resistance, non-insurrectionary forms are types of resistance. So there was suicide, pretending ignorance. Boss, I don't know what you're talking about, you know. Move the ox. Sorry, is that the core or is that the right? Pretending ignorance, sabotage of plantation equipment and aspects of plantation life. You know, of course, you know, particularly the ones that took quite a long time to fix. Malingering, which is to go so, you know, but not gonna fast no, you know, just take more time, you know. Sun, you know, night soon come. In other words, and of course, it's productivity. Women, of course, would have their own particular strategies, you know, singing satirical song, and trust me, there's nothing like an African or Caribbean woman singing a song about you that is not complimentary. Right, so and I'm sure that the white planters would have experienced many instances of this. Cultural resistance, example of non-insurrectionary resistance, passing on African traditions, when of course it was not, it was illegal to do so. Refusing to do certain tasks, quarreling with the masters, and yes, and I think you maybe can visualize some of these quarrels. You know, me not do it. You know, and I'm not doing it, right? So certainly you can imagine the extended body language and everything. You know, from certainly from some of what you have seen in present time. Feigning illness to avoid work. Oh, my head hurting, my belly, my foot up. Right, and of course taking their own time. So, boss, I can't go fast. My foot injured yesterday. You know, fell into a hole in the cane piece. That kind of stuff. Prolonged lactation. You know, they have the baby, and of course they give the baby milk until a certain time, right? And within which time, of course, you go easy on them, and the expectation that their condition would be kind of alleviated. You know, but if it's supposed to take 3 months or a month, you know, they stretch it into additional time. Boss, you know, I have the baby. You know, you can't do that kind of work. I have the baby, right? That kind of stuff. Voluntary abortion and repressing the reproductive system by drinking, using the knowledge of herbs so to repress the body functions. In other words, they don't get pregnant because they know what herbs to drink and to boil to prevent them from getting pregnant or you know. So and certainly most of this kind of knowledge would have come from the African forebears. Living up to the lazy stereotype, because really and truly a lot of the planters saw that, them people are these slaves, them really lazy, right? You know, them do this, them do that, them do that, them do this, them do that, them do that. You know, but they don't do any work, they're lazy, right? So, so a lot of the slaves resisted by actually saying, all right, you want to see lazy? Lazy you will see. Or you want to see people not doing their work? That you will, and they actually did that. and and of course at the risk of punishment, backchatting and singing satirical songs, right? So these were some of the ways, the non-insurrectionary ways of punishment. Somebody need to mute your mic. I'm getting that kind of feedback as if there's a vibrant discussion in the background.
Yes, sir.
Types of resistance, insurrectionary, burning down the plantation. Awesome. We're tired of this. We're tired of this place. We're going to burn it down. Right? Marinade, which involves running away. So marinade, which involves running away. So for example, you know, they just take off to the hills, and of course, you know about the Maroons in Jamaica and the Bush Negroes in Suriname. Armed attack, you know, killing the masters or his family. You know, all of the rebellions and revolutions. So these were the insurrectionary forms, the violent forms, so to speak. Yeah, and I think maybe if you actually think about it, these things were really quite brutal, you know, because, you know, using swords and clubs and guns and anything that they could find, you know, they were prepared to do this. All right. Revolt. Is it a revolution? Is it a revolt and a revolution? Which is it? Right. So a revolt is usually an unsuccessful revolution. Rebellion. Yeah. So significant rebellion occurred in the Caribbean. So 1773 Berbice Rebellion, 1823 the Marara and Guyana, 1816 the Barbados Rebellion, 1831 the Christmas Rebellion in Jamaica, and the only successful Black Slave Revolution. When we say successful, it means that the overthrow of the entire system and the establishment of a society that was governed by the successful African slaves was that of 1791 to 1804. All right. So so all of this is just really to refresh your memory as to what is involved in the theme resistance and revolt. And certainly, as I said, for the multiple choice, your reading has to be deep. This is just one theme, one of the themes that you have to do. But for all of them, your reading has to be deep and detailed to prepare you for the multiple choice. All right, so now that you're at the end of this particular aspect of it, hopefully we are going to use the next couple of minutes. We have about 15 minutes on clock to look at some multiple choice questions. And as I said to you, that our aim is to maximize the time. All right, so let me see. Hello,
Sorry,
go ahead, please.
We have a question from one of our YouTube videos at Learn to Dig to Pits, who's from London. So big up people from students in London. They're asking, could you please tell me where I may find the satirical songs the women sang?
Well, a lot of them would have been, certainly if we do some research, you'll be able to find those. If you could supply an email at the end, I would commit to doing the appropriate research and supplying examples of those. All right.
Thank you, sir.
So, yeah, man. All right. So now, let us go to, yeah. Am I on it? Oh, here it is. All right, guys, are you seeing that? Let me go right to the top and proceed at pace. Persons are still joining. Yeah. I imagine, you can imagine some of the contents of those satirical songs, you know, because the African slaves would have been particularly creative and at ensuring that, you know, they couldn't really be blamed, you know, it would be all in your mind. But with no doubt the planter would know that they were the persons being targeted. Right? So, you know, we are looking at some multiple choice questions, and our aim is really to identify the correct options and sorry, 1 minute. Yes, to identify the correct options and to, you know, improve our knowledge of resistance and revolt. All right, so let us begin. Pace time is going. All right, so which of the following practices made it most difficult for the slaves to revolt during the Middle Passage? Is it that they were separated from members of their tribe? Is it that they were allowed on deck for exercise? Is that they're mostly shackled at all times? Is it that, you know, these sailors who manned the ships were great guys who were big and bad? No, certainly the slaves were shackled at all times, or most of the times. All right, if they were not, then trust me, you know, these African enslaved, as I said to you before, resistance didn't begin when they came out of the ship in the New World or in their territory they were enslaved. It began the minute that they were grabbed and placed on these ships, or even before, right? So the answer to this one is C. All right. Let us go to the second question. Let's go to the second question. And we're trying to maximize.
So one of your students answered was A.
Mr. White?
No, they were separated. No, and that's fair. So they were separated from other members of their tribes. But even on the ships, all of the Africans would have realized that this was not an ideal situation. They were going somewhere they did not know. And so that wasn't so much an hindrance on the ship as the fact that they were shackled together. And I mean tightly shackled together. Shackled means that they have something around them like that locked them, that was locked. So think of handcuffs. So that were around their hands, around their feet. So they couldn't move. They simply couldn't move. All right.
All right, Mr. White,
yes.
if you may allow me, I would like to know why Carissa actually opted that A was the answer in her mind. Could I hear from her? Could we allow her, unmute her?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Alexis,
go ahead.
please.
Yes, man, of course.
Miss, I thought A was the answer because if you're going to start a group, you're not going to need like members to come together.
And I can, as I said, I can understand your reasoning. On the plantation, many times it was a barrier, which incidentally many of the enslaved Africans in rebellion overcome. They found ways around it. But certainly language would have been a barrier, tribal differences would have been a barrier. But an even greater barrier, even more than that, was the fact that you were tied to the ship, literally was tied to the ship. You could not move, not even for bathroom functions. You were locked in by metal that didn't even allow you to extend your feet or sleep comfortably. So I do understand your reasoning, Carisha, but C is the most appropriate answer. And of course, this is what you'll face in the multiple choice where the answers really, from a reasoning point of view, would seem to be more appropriate or close, so to speak. All right, Carissa, I hope that really explains it. All right, we're at question 2. Slaves in the Caribbean were sometimes punished by mutilation, which consists of A, confinement, B, flogging against the back, hanging by the arm, disfigurement of the body. And of course, mutilation refers to disfigurement of the body, because it is flogging, of course, resulted in marks and wheals and open cuts against the back. But there were more. They did far more than that. I mean, cut off hands, cut off feet, just to send a signal that, you know, if another slave did something like that, then that's what would happen. All right. So that's the answer to question 2. And these are questions that really reflect what would you see on past CSEC papers. The 3 colors in Saint-Domingue saw the outbreak of the French Revolution as an opportunity to A, violently suppress the rule of the whites in the colony, B, demand social and political rights for social groups, fight for an end to slavery in the colony, demand greater social and political rights for themselves.
Mr. White,
Anybody?
Mr. White,
yes, go ahead.
The Carisancia Stewart is trying to answer the question.
Yes,
could you respond to that? She said D.
Yes, so D is correct. So immediately the French Revolution began with the buzzwords of fraternity and equality, equality, the brotherhood of all men, and so forth. Then, of course, the mulattoes are the free colors in Saint-Domingue, who really, although they were free, were really restricted in their opportunities, largely because of their color. They grab the opportunity to demand, well, no, there's more. I should be able to run for political office. I should be able to have these greater rights, just as even the poor rights who are poorer than I am. They are better off in terms of rights. So they grab the opportunity to demand greater social and political rights for themselves. So you're right. Is it Kerisansia? Did I get that name correctly? Yes. All right. Let us go to the next question. I'm trying to bring it up. All right. In what chronological order did these rebellions take place? And trust me, there are more than disturbances. They bashed down the place and contributed massively to the idea that slavery was an unstable situation that could not persist. All right, so we have the Moran Bay Rebellion, the Haitian Rebellion, the Demerara Revolt, the Christmas Rebellion. Anybody?
They're answering A, sir.
And A is correct. A is correct. So we had the Moran Bay. All right, so let us take it in the other side. The Haitian Revolution, 1791. We had the Demerara, so that's 3, the Demerara Revolt in 1823, the Christmas Rebellion in 1831, and the Moran Bay Rebellion in 1865. Yes, right. The students seem to have done their reading. That is good. That's good. All right. The next question. A major cause of the Bossa Revolt of the 1816 in Barbados was the, anybody? Anybody?
Nobody yet, sir. Ooh,
Well,
somebody, Chris Shanna says B.
And B is correct, yes. So so there are the belief that emancipation was being delayed, and you would find that in many of these revolts, the slaves actually could read and were aware of some of the current sort of what was happening. And even if the facts were not immediate, certainly they would have been aware of some of the arguments being swirled around. And this, of course, led them to act on many occasions. So that answer is correct. All right. Then now we go to, now we go to question. Sorry, I'm jumping. I'm trying to get to question 6. Right. So which of the following enslaved persons were most likely to use poisoning of owners as a means of resistance? And of course, if I was a slave owner during that time, trust me, I would really be, I would be most careful.
B, everybody.
Really?
B, everybody.
Yes, and B is correct. These domestics, those are the person in the houses, the ones close to the water supply, the one who could say poison food. Yes, they are correct. All right, let us proceed. So we go to 7. All of the following were leaders of the enslaved Africans in the Haitian Revolution, except, I'll throw that out to the field. What are the answers coming in, Miss? All of the followings were leaders except?
Everybody saying D, Napoleon.
Right, you're correct, you're correct. You're correct, the letter, right. So Napoleon, of course, we know was the leader of the French Emperor Napoleon, ultimately captured by the British and imprisoned on St. Helena Island where he died. So all of the others would have been involved in the Haitian Revolution. All right, then we go to 8. Which of the following can be considered a major achievement by Saint-Domingue by 1804? A, independence from France. B, reorganization of the sugar estates. C, renewed importance of blacks to the island. D, establishment of Catholicism as a state religion. And Trishana is correct. And Trishana is correct. Thumbs down to that. All right. Then let me scroll. All right. Yes. All right. So this is 8. Going to question 9 now. Come on. Taking a while to come up. Question 9, which of the following conditions, oh Lord. Right, which of the following conditions did not, and you guys, you have to be careful in reading the question. So you might be doing a couple did, and then you meet on a did not, but because you're on a roll, you miss it. All right, so you have to read the questions carefully. Which of the following conditions did not result from the Haitian Revolution? A, the economy of the island was destroyed. B, the pattern of land ownership changed. C, the mulattoes were wiped out. Go ahead.
I don't know if I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing. Riani says C.
C, yes. So that did not happen. The mulattoes were not wiped out. And indeed, even to this day, the fact that, and of course, we are talking about these people, and wiped out mean that they would have been killed and utterly removed, you know. But even this day, the existence of the mulattoes and the blacks alongside in Haiti it plays a significant part. Color differences play a significant part in what is happening in Haiti today. You know, it really is affecting what is happening in the country. All right. And we say the past informs the present. Jump into the next question. Which of the following was not, again, we are on a not, included in the 1739 treaty between the Maroons and Britain? Anybody?
Jada says C.
Right. So they could not accept any runaway slaves as a member of their community. And if you have been following the discussion between that vibrant discussion between the government of Jamaica and the Maroons, led by Chief Curry, and this I'm talking present day Jamaica, and then you realize that some of these issues from way back when, from that peace treaty, were current. People are talking about it. You know, so it's again, it's amazing how much history informs our present lives. All right, so that's correct. 11, Toussaint Louverture contributed to the success of the Haitian Revolution mainly by, yes, guys, yours again. Testing your reading. Anybody?
Brianna says A.
Yes, so A is correct. Yeah. And the role of Toussaint Louverture in the Haitian Revolution tells you that the Africans who brought New World, that weren't just the worst of the worst, both in terms of intellectual ability and otherwise. You know, time and time again, we see examples of slaves whose performance was remarkable, whose grasp of situations were remarkable. Toussaint was really one of those, you know, so that's correct. Going to 12, in 1773, a major uprising by the enslaved Africans took place in the Dutch colony of, anybody?
Chrisan says C.
C, Suriname.
Sherry says C. Chrisancia says A. Ooh, we have a discrepancy.
A is correct. A is correct. A is correct. And that means that the different answers around that means that, guys, maybe we just need to make a note of this and do some more deep reading on it. All right. Because, you know, this should jump out at you by now. All right. So that's that. All right. So in the interest of, yeah, continuing time.
No, man,
12.
Mr. White, go through them if you can. Go
Okay.
through them.
All right. All right. Now proceeding. Where are we now? 13, the slaves in South Damar were mainly interested in A, acquiring their own plantation, B, associating with the whites, C, establishing the first Black Republic, D, freeing all the slaves in the colony. You know, what were they interested in?
Josiah says D.
As in dumpling, yes.
Yes.
They were interested in freeing all the slaves in the colony, right? I think incidentally, maybe just one of the natural end results of those things is that they end up establishing the first Black Republic. But they didn't revolt to say that, you know, we'll get up, you know, we're in this situation. Let us just, you know, we're just going to work at establishing the first Black Republic. No, they We wanted freedom. Everybody should be free. And that's what they set out to accomplish, and that they did. All right, so that's correct. Which of the following were the causes? Oh Lord, sorry. I think somebody's. All right, so question 14. Which of the following were the causes of the Haitian Revolution?
That question, Mr. White, is seemingly missing a portion.
All right.
Because, right, so the first options are not there.
All
you
right,
can
so
skip to the
guys,
other.
yeah, guys, all right. But so I'm going to encourage you, again, make a note, do some deep reading on the Haitian Revolution. It's part of the seminal, one of the seminal areas of Caribbean history. And it is something that you'll meet on the exam paper. All right. So do some deep reading on the Haitian Revolution, so to speak. All right. So let us go now to the next question. That's question 15. So the CSEC started the 1791 revolt in Saint-Domingue, were led by A. Ojé, B. Bookman, C. Dessalines, as in boy.
As in boy.
Yes, that is correct. So Bookman was a Jamaican slave. You know, Jamaicans are everywhere. And it's not, you know, we know that now, but this is not just a recent vintage. So, you know, he has Jamaican antecedents. And that was also quite a spiritualist, if you want to coin that term. And he was integral in setting the spark of the Haitian Revolution. And so, you know, we know nowadays when we listen to the news and we hear some of what is happening, we realize that there's a connection between Haiti and Jamaica, often for the negative. But, you know, if you go back in history, you realize that that connection is not so recent. It is a long-standing connection. So Bookman really was the, you know, one of the, what we call the spark for the Haitian Revolution. All right. Where are we now? I think you have gone back. All right. So let us scroll down. Scroll down. So which of the following were not runaway slaves? Black Jacobins, B. Bush Negroes of Suriname, C. Maroons of Hispaniola, D. Maroons of Jamaica. So which one of them, you know, you'd have done your reading and you'd have.
Says A, and Krishana, they all say A.
And A is correct. A is absolutely correct. It doesn't need a discussion. All right, let us move to the next question. Which of the following events in the Caribbean was the most influenced by the French Revolution? A, the Caribou uprising in St. Vincent, B, the Mulatto revolt in Saint-Domingue, C, the slave uprising in Dominica, and D, the Maroon rebellion in Jamaica. Which one of the following was most?
So most of your students say B as in boy, but Gavandra,
right, so most of the students say yes, and they are absolutely and totally correct. Right. So
which one is
the answer? B as in boy.
Oh, because I said, sir, Gavandra says C as in cat.
No. The Mulatto revolt. So, you know, again, the reading and the research will inform all of that. But certainly the mulattoes. And you see some of these questions, when you look at it, they are really follow on from previous questions. You know? So if you have gotten the previous questions correct, then certainly this one would basically stand out to you as almost a repeat from another direction of the question. All right. So the answer is B as in boy. All right, let us go to 18. So the Demerara revolt in 1823 was related to A, the dispatch of amelioration proposals to the British colonies, B, the act of abolition of the slave trade, C, establishment of the system of apprenticeship in Demerara, D, the act of abolishing the system of slavery.
The first one to say A.
And that's correct. So it is correct. So the Demerara revolt is related to the dispatch of amelioration proposals to the British colonies. All right, let us proceed. So that's 18. 17, 18, and that's where it ends. You know, maybe we needed another good 2 hours. But I'm sure you'd have learned a lot. Have you? You can give some feedback. You know, let us know, you know, in the chat, you know, whether you actually, you know, really enjoyed and learned something from this session. And it would have helped your preparation. All right, in terms of responding to multiple choice, guys, of course, as you have realized that you need to be strategic in your response. You'd have, well, your exam is sometime next week, so you have the entire weekend and Monday to practice multiple choice questions, whether by yourselves, in groups of 2 or more, online or face-to-face. You need to, by now you'd have done your reading. If you haven't completed your reading, you know, give up some sleep and do so. Practice your multiple choice questions, because many times you'll find that this will help you greatly when you go into the examination. You'll be sequences that really are quite familiar or similar to the ones that you have done. Feel free. I know most teachers are really available outside of class hours, so feel free to contact your teachers. Don't be afraid of them. Teachers want you to succeed. They want you to do well. And I'm going to tell you a little something. You know, when you do well, you know, a teacher sends up 40 history students, all of them grade 1. Grade 1. The teacher is seen as, you know, boy, you know, that's a good teacher, you know, students are continuously doing well, his or her what? Yes. So they make themselves available. They want you to succeed. In other words, it is in their self-interest to succeed. All right, so make avail yourselves of their, what we call it, their expertise. Speak to, you're at grade 11, if you have friends who are in upper school, 6th form, who have gone through it and done well, you know, seek their help. Read. History is one of those subjects that you read. Nowadays, the definition of reading has changed. Reading means that you listen to YouTube videos, you know, so there's, but avail yourselves of the sources of information. All right, because that way you are prepared when you go into the exam. Right, in terms of responding to the questions, you'll find that even when you have prepared yourself by reading, many of the times that there, you know, you see 1 or 2 options where you say no, but those 2 are the same. All right. And if you meet on a situation like that, just make an asterisk, continue, because the aim is to complete all of the paper or most of the paper within the time allotted, and you come back to it. But don't just, as I said, Jamaica, park yourself at that question, question number 10, because you can't decide between options, and then you have 50 questions that are unanswered. All right, so you have to strategize when you go into the exam. All right, but as we say, preparation. Can't fault yourself on that. And once you have done that, then you should really do well in your multiple choice paper. All right, so those are my comments, guys. I really enjoyed being with you, sharing with you. History is not only something about the past, it tells us about the present. So we know what malingering is in the past. Yeah, people still take their own time, you know, going about stuff. People still back chat when we talk to them. People still fearing illnesses of resistance by the enslaved that are becoming endemic in our culture. All right. So history informs the present. When we think about 80, we find that to really understand what is happening in Haiti now, we have to go back to the past. We have to go back to what happened during the Haitian Revolution and the response of the European powers to the fact that the slaves were able to drive out or to succeed in their revolt, and the fact that the Haitians had to fork out billions of dollars in today's currency to ensure that the revolution remained successful and that they were able to trade, which explains the poverty of Haiti today. So history is something that is not just about old people and old things. It is something that is alive and well, and it really helps you to understand people around you, our society in Jamaica, and societies in Caribbean societies as well as other countries. All right, guys, I hope you have enjoyed the presentation. I hope you really enjoy the subject. I hope you do your reading and prepare yourself, and all the best for your exam. All right?
Just to underscore what Mr. White had said, wishing you all the best, guys, for your upcoming exams. Remember also not to just see the multiple choice as a paper that is easier than the paper 2, and therefore, because it's really and truly not. As Mr. White had said before, it requires reading and it requires strategizing, because you're faced with options. It's not a paper where you can explain yourself and then take a discursive approach to say, okay, then your examiner is going to say, okay, along the way, he or she was saying this, so we can allot a mark here and a mark there. It's either you have really successfully chosen the correct option or you have not. So it requires a lot of reading, critical thinking as well on your part, and careful assessment of what the question is asking of you. So it's not for you to rush the question. Take keynote to operative words like not, are, or mainly. These things do help for you to zoom in on what is critical and what is really and truly correct. So we're wishing you all the best, and I know you are doing well. We're rooting for you, and we thank you for having us. Over to you, Alexis and team.
Well, thank you so much, Mrs. Baxter. Thank you so much, Mr. White. We hope, you, as already been said, we wish you the best of luck, and thank you for staying with us, and also to everybody on YouTube. We also hope you learned, a few things and ready up for the exam. So guys, good luck, God bless, and if we can help you with anything here at National Museum Jamaica, please let us know. Thanks again, everyone. Good luck.